The reason why just asking what should I do with my drums doesn't work is because it really depends on the context, on the style of the genre, and everything around it. So in this new series that I will be talking about what can you do with your drums, for example, we will be discovering and we'll be exploring a couple of approaches of things that you can do and see if they fit within your own style, and maybe that will take you to some new creative places using the same tools that everyone else has. Straight from Mexico City, my name is Juanchis, and today I did this example. First of all, let's look a little bit into the overheads. Just straight from the microphone, they don't really sound well. I don't like them. I even have a whole video on how to listen to overheads. I'll leave it in the description. It has some downloadable files with the reaper session, so you can go on and start listening in a different way. So first of all, what I would try to do, or one of the things that you can try to do, is I'm going to use the Distressor by Tukan, and I'm going to really smash it because I want to remake the harshness of the high end, and I want to bring everything a lot closer because I'm listening a lot of the room and very little of the closeness of the overheads. There's a small ringing frequency over there that's like, ooh, you know, like I'll play it again, look for it. First of all, this idea is to bring the hi-hats really, really up. I'm slowing the attack a little bit so I don't crush them, and with almost a fast release, so that way they always recover, and I always get the next snare and the next kick drum. Especially when they start making faster patterns, it shouldn't be a problem. This high-pass frequency in the sidechain circuit or the detection circuit is really important because this helps so that the kick doesn't trigger as much the compression with the Distressor. I'll turn it off and I'll turn it on. So I'm getting a different feeling to it, right? I'll place it with the kick and the snare. It simply doesn't work. The low end of the kick is it's simply not working, so that's why I'm using that first. Another thing that you can do is that you're going to have some sort of dynamic stage. You can do this movement that is done really often up here. So I only have two EQs linked, right? I'm going to only open one because this works just well enough. I'll turn off these other bands because they are not necessary for this example. And what I did here was link the gain, so whenever I bring this up, the other one comes down. So I'm feeding more into the Distressor, or I'm feeding less into the Distressor, and then bringing it back without being too changed tonally by the dynamic processor, right? Remember that if you want to do this, you just have to move the last parameter that you want to adjust, hit on parameter modulation link. You just look on this list for the parameter that you're moving, for example, the low shelf gain, and I will go into the second EQ and I will assign it to the low shelf gain of this EQ, right? And then you have to adjust these parameters just like that, like just take a screenshot. This inverts the control. Otherwise, you're going to move them not proportionally or in the same direction. This helps you move them in the opposite directions. So whenever I go like this happens. If I change any of these parameters, it's not even proportional, as you can see, right? Or it doesn't move at all. So you need to have it just like that. Everything on the left, everything on the left. So it moves in the opposite way. So here what's going on is I need to take off a little bit of the low end and then bring it back up. So listen to the overheads with this small movement. Without it, with it one last time. And without it one last time. So this is something you can do and you can try with many things in between. For example, saturation or distortion stages. Just take something out, saturate whatever you want to, and then bring it back. The rest of the bands, I'm using them just to give some more tonal shape to whatever I want to do specifically. But that's all that's going on right here. There's nothing more. Another thing that you can do is, for example, this room or actual room mic is not really nice. So I made a fake room, right? Use any plugin that lets you, just use any plugin that lets you build or has some sort of room sound to it. I like to use convolutions. I really like the IQ series by Hoffa, and the reverb is fantastic. Let me show you how it sounds. And even though you can adjust and dampen the frequencies across and you can change the decay time and whatnot, I highly suggest that you do a small mix into the room. I find this lets me balance out first how I want the room to react, because I'm building a room from scratch, right? I have this advantage in the box. Once that makes sense and your kick doesn't end up sounding on the right side and your snare on the left side, be careful and pay attention to that. You might want to do this very simple and very common trick of just triggering the room with a snare or with the same snare that you have on your session. So remember that you can just drag from the send section into another channel and that creates a send. I'm not setting the gate in this room, fake room channel, because the amount of channels this plugin uses makes a mess with the auxiliary inputs on the rear gate. So I have to nest it in a folder of some sort. Here I'm listening to the auxiliary inputs where the snare is coming through inputs 3 and 4. And now I can just adjust the threshold. Remember that you can also use the dynamic split items threshold to figure out what's a probably nice level for the threshold for you to always land those snare hits. But for creative purposes, this time it works at -40, and I'm playing a lot with the release time. So without the room, and with the room, without the snare trigger, with the trigger of the snare, I'm using this release as an envelope shaper of the decay of my room reverb, right? This is not new, I'm just making it longer and not making it really short, like this gated reverb effect from the 80s. So far so good, but how about using that as a resource to change the excitement across the track? So you might want to automate the release of the gate, so whenever you're transitioning into a new section, it feels like it grows in excitement. I'm really going to raise the level of the room. This is not a decision that I would usually make, but just so it's easier to listen to. So it brings a different feel to the next section. Remember that you can automate a lot of things, and this helps bring a little different kind of excitement to the section. From that, you could also try this on your drums. Another way to deal with the excitement for the drummer, if it's kind of a really steady beat, is you can automate some saturation. In this case, I am using also 2 instances of the guitar station, also by Tukan. And I have assigned one to the left channel and the other one to the right channel input too, right? So I'm using different amps, different microphones, play around with it. There's not too much to show in this regard. And let me show you how this sounds. I'm going to turn off the gate. We're only going to listen to the room and see what the guitar station brings to the sound. Precisely because it can get so chaotic, that's why you need a gate. So let me show you with a gate. And now I'm going to take advantage that I can do this in Reaper, and I have an internal dry wet for any plugin that I want. And I can just bring it down to 50-40%, and this is going to add some distortion texture to the reverb. And here I'm automating the mix of that one. Remember that if you go into the envelopes of your track, we have this new way of visualizing it, and you can just look for the wet parameter, and you can make it active and visible for whichever plugins you want. And this is the global wet that's built into Reaper. So from here to here, the saturation is growing on the left and the right side. So that new King sound that I have, in context, now that you listen to it and you know what to look for, sounds like this. Of course, I'm overdoing it a little bit, but it's just to show an example. It's not all about just compressing and doing sample replacement and stuff like that. There are a lot of things that we can do to add excitement and to add some sort of intention to whatever we are mixing or making sound out of. So hit that notification bell if you want to hit that notification bell if you always want to be notified about all of these series and all of the next ones, and look at the previous ones that I have been making. We will start showing some things that you can do to your instruments. Mainly, I will try to stick with free plugins or stock plugins. Eventually, I will be using a couple that aren't just like the IQ Reverb by Hoffa. If you like this kind of videos, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and do all of those things that people on YouTube say. Straight from Mexico City, my name is Juanchis, and thanks for listening.